Picture this. You're at a family gathering, and your relatives are throwing shade at your career choices, calling you a failure while you're quietly sitting there, knowing something they don't. Well, that's exactly what happened to Kim Soo-Hyun, and let me tell you, his revenge story is absolutely legendary. We're talking about a man who went from being the family disappointment to literally dropping from the sky in a helicopter just to prove a point. If you think you know dramatic entrances, wait until you hear what this Hallyu king pulled off at his own family reunion. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, because this story has more twists than a K-drama finale, and trust me, you won't want to miss how this whole thing unfolds. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Kim Soo-Hyun's family probably thinks twice before making any career advice comments at dinner tables. Let's rewind to 2003. Kim Soo-Hyun was just another struggling actor in Seoul, living in a tiny one-room apartment in Mapo district, surviving on convenience store meals and pure determination. While his cousins were climbing corporate ladders at Samsung and LG, landing prestigious jobs that made their parents beam with pride, Soo-Hyun was collecting rejection letters like they were going out of style. His family wasn't exactly supportive of his acting dreams, and honestly, you can't blame them for being skeptical. During those early years, family gatherings were basically torture sessions for him. Picture this. Every Korean holiday, there he was, sitting at the low table while his successful cousins got the seats of honor. His aunt would always ask the same painful question. "So, Soo-Hyun, are you still doing that acting thing?" The way she said acting thing made it sound like he was collecting bottle caps or something equally pointless. His uncle, who owned a successful construction company, would shake his head and mutter about how Soo-Hyun was wasting his youth on fantasies. The worst part? They weren't entirely wrong to be concerned. Soo-Hyun was struggling hard. He was taking on tiny roles in web dramas that barely paid enough to cover his rent. While his peers were building retirement funds, he was wondering if he'd have enough money for next month's phone bill. His mother, God bless her, was supportive but worried, sick. She'd slip him envelopes of cash during family gatherings, whispering that she believed in him while simultaneously suggesting maybe he should consider a backup plan. But here's the thing about Kim Soo-Hyun that his family didn't fully grasp yet. This man had steel running through his veins. Every rejection, every sideways glance from relatives, every whispered conversation about his phase just fueled the fire burning inside him. He wasn't just dreaming. He was methodically building his craft, taking acting classes, studying his favorite actors frame by frame, and preparing for the moment when everything would change. The breaking point came during Chuseok 2019. Soo-Hyun had just finished filming It's Okay to Not Be Okay, but it hadn't aired yet. He was optimistic about the project, feeling like this might be his breakthrough moment, but his family had no idea what was coming. That holiday gathering would become legendary in family lore, but not for reasons anyone expected. Chuseok 2019 was supposed to be a celebration, but for Kim Soo-Hyun, it turned into a masterclass in family humiliation. The gathering was at his grandmother's traditional hanok house in Bukchon, Seoul. You know, one of those beautiful old Korean houses with the curved roofs and wooden beams. The entire extended family was there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and their kids, all gathered around low tables laden with traditional food. Soo-Hyun arrived quietly, as he always did, carrying gifts for the elders and wearing a simple outfit that didn't scream success. At 31, he was at that age where Korean families start getting really concerned about your life choices. His cousin Jae-wook, who'd just gotten promoted to department head at a major bank, was holding court, talking about his new apartment in Gangnam and his plans to buy a second property as an investment. Then came the moment that would haunt the family for years. Soo-Hyun's uncle, the one with the construction business, had clearly had a few drinks. He started his usual lecture, but this time it was more brutal than ever. "Soo-Hyun, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You're 31 now. When are you going to stop playing dress up and get a real job? Your cousin Jae-wook here is already thinking about marriage and buying property. What do you have to show for all these years of acting?" The entire room went silent. You could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the corner. Soo-Hyun's mother looked mortified. His grandmother shot disapproving looks at her son. But the damage was done. Other relatives started chiming in with their helpful suggestions. Maybe he could use his degree to get into teaching. Maybe his uncle could find him a position at the construction company. Maybe it was time to face reality. But the worst comment came from his aunt, Jae-wook's mother. She looked directly at Soo-Hyun and said, "Honey, some people are meant to be stars, and some people are meant to support the stars. There's no shame in admitting which one you are." The condescension in her voice was thick enough to cut with a knife. She wasn't trying to be cruel, but somehow that made it worse. Soo-Hyun sat there, nodding politely, thanking them for their concern, and promising to think about their advice. Inside, though, something shifted. He wasn't angry. He was determined. He knew something they didn't know. "It's okay to not be okay" was going to change everything, but he couldn't tell them that. All he could do was smile, eat his food, and plan his revenge. So, what do you think so far? Can you imagine sitting through that kind of family intervention? Drop a comment and let me know if you've ever had to deal with family members who just didn't get your dreams. Fast forward to June 2020. It's Okay to Not Be Okay premiered on TVN, and within weeks, Kim Soo-Hyun wasn't just famous. He was a global phenomenon. We're talking about a show that didn't just trend in Korea. It dominated Netflix charts in over 80 countries. Suddenly, everyone knew who Kim Soo-Hyun was, and more importantly, everyone wanted to work with him. The transformation was mind-blowing. His fee per episode skyrocketed from a few $100,000 to over $500 million. That's roughly $500,000 per episode. Brand deals started pouring in from luxury companies, cosmetics brands, and tech giants. We're talking about endorsement deals worth millions of dollars each. His face was everywhere. Billboards in Times Square, airport advertisements in Singapore, magazine covers across Asia. But here's where it gets really interesting. While all this was happening, his family was slowly realizing what they'd missed. His cousin Jae-wook, the banking hotshot, started getting calls from friends asking if he was related to that Kim Soo-Hyun from the Netflix show. His uncle, the construction guy, watched his business associates light up when they found out. His nephew was the Kim Soo-Hyun. Suddenly, being related to the family failure became the coolest thing about them. Soo-Hyun's mother started getting invited to social gatherings she'd never been included in before. Neighbors who used to give her pitying looks now asked for autographs and photos. The family dynamics were shifting in ways nobody had anticipated. But here's the beautiful part. Soo-Hyun wasn't petty about it. He didn't call them up to gloat or remind them of their harsh words. He just quietly continued building his empire. By early 2021, Kim Soo-Hyun had become one of the highest-paid actors in Asia. His production company was flourishing. He'd invested smartly in real estate and tech startups, and his net worth had crossed into the tens of millions. He was living in a penthouse in Hanam-dong, the same neighborhood where BTS members live, and his garage housed a collection of luxury cars that would make most people weep. But the real power move was still coming. You see, success wasn't enough for Kim Soo-Hyun. He wanted to make a statement, and he wanted it to be unforgettable. When Chuseok 2021 rolled around, he had an idea that was so audacious, so perfectly dramatic, that it could only come from the mind of someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of storytelling. Now, here's where Kim Soo-Hyun's story gets absolutely wild. By September 2021, he wasn't just wealthy. He was buy a helicopter for fun wealthy. His investment portfolio was diversified across entertainment companies, tech startups, and luxury real estate. He owned properties in Seoul, Los Angeles, and Tokyo. His car collection included a Lamborghini, a Bentley, and a custom Tesla that cost more than most people's houses. But Soo-Hyun wasn't content with just being rich. He wanted to create a moment that would become family legend. So, he started planning what might be the most epic family reunion entrance in Korean entertainment history. First, he contacted a helicopter charter service, not just any service, but the premium one that celebrities and chaebols use. We're talking about a luxury helicopter with leather seats, champagne service, and a price tag of about 5 million won per hour. The plan was military precision level detailed. He coordinated with his mother, who was the only family member in on the scheme. She confirmed that the family gathering would be at the same traditional house in Bukchon, and more importantly, that there was enough space in the courtyard for a helicopter landing. Soo-Hyun even hired a professional event coordinator to make sure everything would go smoothly. But here's the genius part. He didn't just want to arrive in style, he wanted to arrive. The week before Chuseok, Soo-Hyun's anxiety was through the roof. This wasn't just about showing off, it was about closure. He needed his family to understand that their dreams and his dreams weren't so different after all. They wanted security, respect, and prosperity. He'd just chosen a different path to get there. The helicopter was symbolic, but what mattered was what it represented. Validation, vindication, and maybe just a tiny bit of well-deserved revenge. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey. I know it sounds almost too dramatic to be true, but trust me, the best part is absolutely still coming. You're not going to believe how this family reunion actually went down. Chuseok Day, 2021. The Kim family was gathered at grandmother's house, going through the same familiar rhythms they'd followed for decades. The traditional food was laid out, the elders were seated in places of honor, and the conversations were flowing in predictable patterns. Soo-Hyun's absence was noted but not surprising. He'd been busy with work for the past couple of years, which everyone interpreted as him being too embarrassed to face them after their previous conversations. Around 2 p.m., something unprecedented happened in the quiet Bukchon neighborhood. A low rumbling sound started growing louder and louder. The Kim family initially ignored it, thinking it was construction noise or maybe a delivery truck, but the sound kept intensifying until it was impossible to ignore. The windows started vibrating. Traditional roof tiles were rattling. Conversations stopped mid-sentence as everyone looked around in confusion. Then, through the courtyard entrance, they saw it. A sleek, black helicopter descending from the Seoul sky like something out of an action movie. The rotor wash sent autumn leaves swirling in dramatic spirals. Neighbors came running out of their houses, phones already recording what looked like a scene from a K-drama. The pilot executed a perfect landing in the courtyard, and for a moment, everything was silent, except for the gradually slowing rotor blades. The helicopter door opened, and out stepped Kim Soo-Hyun, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, sunglasses, reflecting the afternoon light, carrying a bouquet of white chrysanthemums for his grandmother. Behind him, uniformed catering staff began unloading what looked like enough premium food to feed a small army. The entire family stood frozen, jaws literally dropped, trying to process what they were witnessing. Soo-Hyun walked calmly to his grandmother, bowed deeply in traditional greeting, and presented the flowers with the same quiet respect he'd always shown. "Grandmother," he said simply, "I'm sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible, so I took an alternative route." The understatement of the century, delivered with perfect comedic timing. The aftermath was pure chaos. Neighbors were climbing fences to get better photos. His cousin Jae-wook was stammering apologies for past comments. His uncle, the construction guy, kept asking technical questions about helicopter landing permits and insurance requirements, his way of processing the shock. The aunt who'd made the cruel comment about supporting stars versus being stars, she was speechless for the first time in family memory. But here's what made the moment truly special. Soo-Hyun didn't gloat. He didn't lecture anyone or throw their past words back in their faces. Instead, he spent the afternoon serving food to his elders, asking about everyone's lives, and genuinely reconnecting with family members he'd missed. The helicopter was just transportation. The real gift was his presence and the incredible feast he'd brought to share. By evening, when the EU helicopter returned to take him back to his penthouse, the entire family dynamic had shifted permanently. But it wasn't because of the money or the dramatic entrance. It was because Kim Soo-Hyun had shown them who he really was. Someone who remembered where he came from, honored his family despite their doubts, and had the grace to forgive without making them feel small. And that, my friends, is how Kim Soo-Hyun turned a family reunion into the most legendary entrance in K-entertainment history. This story isn't just about success or revenge. It's about staying true to yourself even when everyone around you doubts your path. Sometimes the people who question your dreams are the same people who'll be proudest of you when those dreams come true. What I love most about this story is that Soo-Hyun could have chosen to be petty, but instead, he chose to be generous. He could have embarrassed his family, but he chose to honor them. That helicopter wasn't just about showing off his wealth. It was about showing his character. What do you think about Kim Soo-Hyun's approach? Was the helicopter entrance too much, or was it the perfect way to handle years of family doubt? Have you ever had to prove yourself to people who didn't believe in your dreams? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your stories. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this deep dive into K-drama legend territory. And speaking of incredible comeback stories, I'm going to leave a suggestion for another video that'll blow your mind. It's about how another Korean superstar went from sleeping in a car to owning a building. Trust me, you won't believe how that story unfolds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.